This week on One Day Leader, our contestants tackle the momentous challenge in our country of the delivery of basic needs for South Africans. Good afternoon, Mzansi. We're coming to you live on SABC1 Mzansi for sure. Isanjalo ke lendaba ngoba namhlanje kuseyilo elamanqamu as we draw closer to announcing who the winner of the 300,000 Rand grand prize will be. Engabe ubani kubaholi benu abazohamba namuhla. Well, that is all up to you. Today we're discussing one of the country's biggest issues, and that is the delivery of basic needs for all South Africans. It's almost become a norm in our country to see people living in abject poverty without having the most basic of needs, such as proper shelter, running water, sanitation, electricity, and in Mzansi, even at the most basic healthcare. How do we as a country still expect proactive citizens who effectively and positively contribute to our country when they're still living under such appalling conditions? Which brings us to our topic or our question today. What else can be done to fast-track the delivery of basic needs for all South Africans? We want you to be a part of this conversation as much as our four leaders here. Ngakho-ke khumbulani ukuthi ningasitshela ukuthi nicabangani ngokuvakashela i-Facebook page yethu, that's One Day Leader SA. Also check out our Twitter page at One Day Leader, and that all-important hashtag is One Day Leader 5. Now, as you know, 2 of your leaders have been eliminated so far, and now we're just left with 4 contestants who are battling it out for the ultimate title of One Day Leader Season 5. I guess this way. Sakile, your vision statement, please.
From the streets of Mlazi to the stages of the SABC, I believe in an open opportunity society where it is not where you come from that determines how far you make it in life. South Africa, it is very evident that we need change. So be that change.
Thank you very much. Leader 3, it's your turn.
A government for the people, by the people. 150 years ago was the Industrial Revolution, but today we live in a political revolution where young people are at the forefront. Why? Because to be young. Why? Because to be young is something, but to be young and woke is everything. Hashtag we are woke.
Moving along swiftly, Leader 4.
Ubuntu over ukudla. Let us work hand in hand at developing South Africa to become the utopia it rightfully is, where we drive regional and economic development by empowering young people. The South Africa of tomorrow, today.
Thank you very much. Lebo, it's your turn.
South Africa deserves a strong-willed woman to drive economic development and to serve society with due diligence. If we can change our mindsets, we can change our lives.
Thank you very much, leaders, for your vision statements. Now, last week you voted. Let's take a look at how the series scoreboard stands. While leading the scoreboard is Sakile, Sydney, and Lebo. They all tie at 12 points each, and trailing behind closely is Ritabile with 11 points. Interesting. Now, since Tuesday, you at home have been voting, and you'll soon find out what those final results will be. For now, let's see where your votes stand currently at the top of the scoreboard. We have Ritabile with 1,179 points, and trailing behind is Sydney with 203 points. All right, remember, you at home, your votes do count and they can change that scoreboard completely. Let me remind you how you can continue voting. To vote for Sakile, SMS Leader 2 to 32672. For Ritabile, SMS Leader 3. To vote for Sydney, SMS Leader 4. And to vote for Lebo, SMS Leader 5. Now imagine for a moment that you had to wake up every day without a roof over your head. No food, no running water, no sanitation, or other things like the use of electricity, which we often take for granted. Now, without all these things, how does one even begin to think about sending a CV to look for work, or even contributing positively to greater society? Now, with millions of South Africans living in such conditions, how do we even start to move forward as a country? Well, let me welcome our guest judge for today, Mr. Gershwell Brooks, who is the Communications Coordinator at the South African Human Rights Commission. Gershwell, thank you for coming.
Good afternoon.
Perhaps Perhaps you could share for us, Gershwell, just the importance of having the basic needs of all South Africans being met, and what the significance is and what the Human Rights Commission says about that.
I think our starting point is the South African Constitution, where we list numerous socioeconomic rights, or what's referred to as socioeconomic rights. Amongst them are also rights that enable those socioeconomic rights, enable you, giving you the power to be able to realize some of the issues that we're going to discuss. I mean, first and foremost is education, and that needs to be improved upon, and that's very important. And I think second to that is also giving people the right to work, as well as being able to participate in the mainstream economy.
All right, nicely said. Thank you very much. Allow me to welcome our resident judges, president and CEO of Ditshego Media, Tebogo Ditshego, and climate activist and social entrepreneur, Catherine Constantinides. Catherine, I'll come to you. You and I are very fortunate to have our basic needs met, with or without the assistance from government. But do you think that as ordinary South Africans, there's something that we can do to mobilize and assist those who don't have those basic needs met?
I think it's really important for those of us who do have those basic needs met. How do we unlock the freedoms and the rights and responsibilities that we have as citizens to ensure that we are unlocking those rights for other people? And today I'm looking forward to these young leaders sharing with us innovative ideas on how they believe those basic rights can be speed tracked in order for people to receive what they need to be able to play a part in our communities.
All right, thank you very much, Catherine. Now, the community of Alexandra is famous for a lot of things. It's given birth to stars, politicians, famous actors, as well as musicians. But it is also one of the communities that have struggled with basic needs for the longest of times. Now, Mzansi, let's put a face to some of the people that live life like this on a daily basis. Good morning, leaders. So this is your final task briefing, and I advise that you fully immerse yourselves in the lives of the community you're going to meet. South Africa has a huge problem when it comes to the delivery of some basic living needs. So your mission today is to find out exactly what those essential services are and how not having them met affects people's lives. For the last time this season, good luck.
Pila ka e bohloko. E bohloko. O re ke pepile bana ba holetse mo. Bana le bile ba kreile ditlolo mo re sa ditse pleke e one. Ditlolo tse di ka se hole right mo. Di ka se hole right. Ya dilo tse re hlokang tsona ke dintlo mo Setswetla. Ke dintlo ke metsi. Ke tsona di toilete le di dustbin. Ke ntho re senang tsona mo Setswetla. Ene le delivery ko clinic ya rena yona. Ke ntho tse re senang tsona ka lebaka la hore le maponesa hape. Ke ntho tse re senang tsona. Ke tshwanetse di thuse rena re le setšhaba re le so. A rena tsona. A sore le bana ba ba itirang dihobo ke lebaka la re batswadi ba ba tlhokomesa. No. Ke lebaka la re kontse re dula tulone so ene so kry le gore nako nngwe ngwana o nyaka o robala nako nngwe o nyaka o dirang ke re gore a ona ntho nka idiana a iyo ke room e one tshwantse re ke tlhapola o tshwantse re a tso tsena o mongwe tshwantse re tlhapola o la lena a tso a siele o mongwe. And then to generate mo di waiting list mara re palla go ya mo dintlong mara maforina ba kene mo la dintlong ka ditšhelete wena mo South Africa o sena tšhelete o ka se kene ke ntho e dile no re salem o fitla tšatši la di vote ba kitima ba tlo tlhoma ditente mo right hona ba tlo tlhoma ditente di-vote tšela tša rena ko rena be re votela maforina ore maforina a benefite rena ra se ka benefita rena ba South Africa re bolela ke batho ba rena ba bantsho ba ba retileng pele ke bona ba re bolayana tša swa maburu ba re rena batho ba bantsho tlhalogana tša rena di lekana le meriri ya rena and nnete ba bolela nnete.
Mzansi1 never really thinks of how dire the lives of others are until these kinds of realities hit you in the face. The journey to getting where they need to get to in life will certainly take much longer than you and I. Within that time, what can be done to improve the quality of their lives? After the break, let's see if our leaders will tackle this issue. Phinde nginamukele ku-One Day Leader. It's still Elimination Day in Mzansi. And let's hope you're watching your leaders closely and voting for your favorite to keep them in this competition. Voting lines will close 15 minutes before the show ends. Now, before the ad break, we witnessed the harsh realities of what living without some basic needs really meant for one family. The issue affects millions of other families in our country. Now, will our contestants do justice in finding ways to curb this issue? I guess ukuthi ngabe basebenze kanjani kwi-task yabo kuleli viki.
When we got there, first of all, it was very, very cold.
So my impression on Edifita was that space-wise, I mean, there's no space for a car to go through the shacks. Just after Refeto Fitla ko Kontunya, she's affectionately known as Mama and Dad. Sakile Retabile offered to help out with the dishes.
Normally one is just used to opening the tab. Like they come I see. This is deep though. Cold water.
It's actually pretty hectic. It's like a small room, and it's cold in here.
So it looks like, I wonder if it's like the bedroom, the kitchen, the everything.
It's everything.
Yeah. It's very deep.
That iron is like extremely heavy, but I think it's like the fact that when it comes to mutlagasi, it doesn't chow as much as what a normal iron would. I think she's found ways, which is I'm saying, even in their poverty, they found ways to sort of make it work for them.
Me and Mama Mandela went to fetch a bit of water. So when we were done with all of that, then we got back to the house, and the kids were preparing for the way to start school. But what I realized was that Omunya and Omuman didn't have the ghost.
I can't get to a point where I can just fully express how I'm just so in shock. Like, I'm in complete shock of the circumstances that other people live in. Like, I never had to walk a day in my life to school. Tapangu, they had to walk without socks. He went to school without simple socks.
Umntana bengadlanga because uma uthe esikoleni bayamenzela ukudla, you know. For a kid to like just only depend on the feeding scheme they have in schools, and from my experience, I think the feeding scheme only comes through ngabo 11, 12.
Hana kubal Mama Mandela, right? I think I understood why in the news you have people that say, I could vote this year.
Since 92. Has there been any change from 92 till now? Something improve from the services that the government?
No. Aye. Kore ba itse ba re ba tonka batho ka mo for sure le 1000 a batho a fitlhe le 4 a fitlhe ba ba bankileng bankile o tshwana le jwale bankile from o ina le chelete o sna chelete ba ka sonke mara ke di RDP.
I don't think we have leaders of high integrity, period. We have an amazing constitution. We just don't have concisive leaders. We don't have the right people heading up what they should be heading up.
Ko re ka tlo utlwisisa hore ho thata ha kae hore maemong a dikoropo maemong a grant wa kgona le kgona ho phela na ka tlung.
ya grant ka se fite for bana ba le 3 ai fite and lebilo ha ka re ke senyaheletse ke sakolo mo ga re ke senyaheletse ke a ona re ka fite
engafuna ukwazi ukuthi i-safe le ndawo mhlawumbe muhambe ebusuku kuba njani ukuphila
ai kwi-safety and kufana noma uthi uyaphuma uye toilet angeke ufike noma kukuphi and uma usavula umnyango nje uhlangana nomuntu khona la.
Her human dignity to a certain degree has been compromised, and not by herself, but by her living conditions.
Mama ke kopa ho botsa because future bana bana ya ameha ke go hola mo leng so how sheba kore bokamoso bana bo tlo thusa ho kae ha o ka etsa la change go ka fetoa mo
bona ba ka se be right la mona lo munyane wa moshimane ore la bona ba ka se be right ka re the most o lebella bana ba bangata mo kore ba bang ba phile mekhuku di boyfriend ba bang ba phaine wa what ke le baka la ene la bophelo bo phediwana.
I think government should supply essential resources regardless. I think anyone living here should have that right to food security, water and shelter.
People need essential services. I mean, it's one of the basic needs of Maslow's hierarchy. That's how people can get to function and be productive members of society. So if you can't give them proper housing, proper sanitation, it's, I think, setting them up for failure.
The question that they need to be able to answer is, as a community, using their collective power, what is it that they can do to maximize on the resources that they use communally? I think that would be the first step in them realizing the power that they have as a community, really to fight all of these socioeconomic problems.
Government didn't design that to be like a place for human settlement. So I think a lot of the essential services aren't able to get there because of where they actually settled, right? So I think it is a settlement problem in this instance.
All right, now we've just saw that insert, and Debocha, I'd just like to come to you. In the insert, we saw Mamandela saying there's been little to no improvement since 1992. Is there anything that the government could do perhaps to fast-track the delivery of basic services?
Well, first of all, I think it's unacceptable that we are living in a country where so many people are dispossessed. 2.1 million people living in shacks, and that's not just in informal settlements. And I think that is against the spirit of our Constitution and the United Nations Millennium Development Plan and goals. So I think that the people need to hold government accountable. We need to have zero tolerance to mediocre service. And so in order for you to hold people accountable, you not only need to know which institutions do what, but who in those institutions is responsible for what and who they report to so that we can hold them accountable.
All right, now Tebogo, let me just come to you and find out the verdict on the task. How did our leaders perform on that one?
Well, this was one of those rare instances where we saw great collective leadership from all of you. Sakile and Ratabila, you were washing the dishes. Sydney, I saw you fixing up the uniform. And Lebo, I saw some of your questions were very, very good. And I think you all worked well effectively. And therefore, all of you are going to be getting 1 point.
Very well done to all of you leaders. Now remember, on the season, we've been throwing in some twists and turns just to raise the level of competitiveness from all our leaders. So after the break, I'll be sharing another big surprise with you as we begin our debates. Sungasugilondao.
A lot of young people are unemployed in our country, and when we do a dipstick assessment of why, we realize that they are undereducated or they don't have education. Secondly, it's because they don't have the skills that are required by the economy. There was a need for a youth development institution like ours to focus on education and skills development. We are looking at upscaling our grant funding program, our scholarship fund, as well as our second chance matric program.
Angiphinda nginamukele kuhlelo lwethu i-One Day Leader. Now, as you've seen, the NYDA continues to help young people in business. We'd like to thank them for being one of our main sponsors for the 300,000 Rand grand prize that our 4 contestants are contesting for. But do remember, one of them could be going home today. Ngakho-ke qhubekani ngokuvota ukuze nibagcine kumncintiswano ngoku-SMS igama elithi leader and the number to our SMS line, which is 32672. Our voting lines will close 15 minutes before the show ends. Now, as I told you before the break, there's a big surprise I have in store for you. Today, we're not only eliminating one leader, but 2 leaders will be going home. Yes, Mzansi, today 2 people are going home. This all-important topic of basic needs for our people in the country will determine who stays and who goes. South Africa, let's hope you're listening in very closely and voting for the leader that you believe in and the one that will come up with the best solutions. The topic is, what else can be done to fast-track the delivery of basic needs for South Africans? Our first debate is between Rithabile and Sydney. You know the rules by now. Rithabile, 30 seconds starts now.
If you have access to a flushing toilet, consider yourself fortunate. Unlike the 2.2 million South Africans without a flushing toilet, according to Eyewitness News, the solution to fast-tracking service delivery for South Africans is to, number 1, encourage democratic deliberation platforms in our communities. Number 2, you need to reduce the red tape and policy overload within local government. And number 3, recognize and support NGOs and NPOs that help with service delivery within our communities.
All right, your 60 seconds, leaders.
Okay, so Tabile, since 1994, government has changed economic empowerment programs 5 times.
All right.
And essentially, your solutions speak to each and every single one of them, encouraging democratic platforms, reducing the red tape. So how does your solution speak to the difference in those 5 different platforms?
Okay, so let's look at the Galara project that was adopted in one of the states in India, right? So what we had there were people, the people there, the public, could actually demand what they want from government.
But how does your solution speak differently to these 5 different economic growth platforms?
Let me show you. Also, we have red tape. We have municipalities have to submit over 700 reports annually, and that shifts the focus from performance to compliance. So
but only
what you
10%
need
of municipalities are producing clean audits.
Let's also look at this, right? What you also have from the capacity assessment that was done by the Development Bank of Southern Africa is that if Free State municipalities actually employ people that are not that don't have the merit to actually.
But how does your solution speak differently to those 5 different
All right, Tabila, your 30 seconds starts now.
All right. It's actually unfortunate that in 23 years of democracy, when seeking for help, you actually have to go through Tamati, and then you have to go to Swete, and then you have to go to Tapolet in seeking for help. And in that case, we still walk out of there without receiving the help that we need. So bureaucracy delays service delivery, and what we need is local government structures to prioritize performance over compliance. We are protesting, we are voting, and the question is, government, are you listening to us?
All right, thank you very much. All right, Sydney, your 30 seconds starts now.
Post the Rwandan genocide, the Rwandan government was able to adopt one service charter themed Vision 2020, and through that one service charter was able to develop over 80% of its citizens before record time. Now that is exactly the solution we need to be speaking to. Rather than looking internationally for solutions now we can resolve service delivery problems, why don't we look at countries that went through the same atrocities that we went through? How are they developing their people to develop themselves? If we can look at that solution, the 700 billion we're losing to corruption, the
Time
10%...
is up, Sydney. 60 seconds, leaders.
Yes.
Sydney, you basically have given us no solution in how we we actually address the issue of surface
In
delivery.
your opinion?
No, actually, what have you given us?
What is your question?
The question is, how do you assist local government to actually access people and help solve their problems in your policy?
All right,
Yes.
so essentially what I'm speaking to is one country on the African continent
Sydney,
that
get
was
rid
able
of-
to use
Okay.
one service charter. We live in a government that has changed economic growth plans 5 times since 1994. From RDP we went
Alright,
to GNP,
listen,
from GNP we went to
Sydney,
NDP,
listen,
and now
right?
we are speaking
Yes,
radical
and
economic
that is what we
transformation.
should speak to. We should speak to policy
We should
overload.
speak to one policy that speaks to developing our
However,
people.
Sydney, that also giving us one policy is not going to solve the issue. How are you going to solve that in one policy? We have issues of
How
housing.
did
we have issues-
Rwanda solve it using Vision 2020?
But also, Rwanda is not the same country as ours. That's why you have to look at
Ladies and gentlemen, Rwanda went through a genocide, South
Africa.
Africa went through apartheid. What's the difference between the two?
Sydney, you can't use one policy for different issues in our society.
So we should use 5, which all of them evidently have failed.
However, Sydney, also you're not even addressing the bureaucracy through that one
All right,
policy.
time is up. Thank you, Leader Sydney.
The South Africa of tomorrow today draws inspiration from the people of Rwanda who developed the economy between 8 to 10% growth annually, simply from developing their people to develop themselves. 700 billion rands lost to corruption annually. Only 10% of our municipalities producing clean audits. Stop looting the public purse. Look to the continent for solutions. We are not the only ones who can drive economic development. If we look to the rest of the continent, ladies and gentlemen, we can also solve our service delivery problems in our country.
Time is up. All right, compelling arguments coming through from our two leaders. I see the judges were busy deliberating. Catherine, do you have the verdict?
We do. We have decided, and it is we're all on the same page here. Sydney most certainly took that one. I want to just quickly say, Retabile, you were too entrenched in your notes. Throughout the debate, when you were trying to debate with Sydney, you were looking through your notes. You need to stand your ground. You have to have a solid idea and your own policy and what it is you want to push. You also then accepted and went with what he was saying instead of reiterating what your stance was while you were debating him on his policy. Well done. Sydney, you were fantastic. Thank you.
Very well done to you, Sydney, for taking that first debate. Now, Sydney has gained a point from our judges, but Mzansi, will it be enough to keep him in the competition? Now, you at home, don't forget to keep voting to keep your favorite leader in the running by SMSing the word leader and the number to our SMS line, which is 32672. Masbuye Dolo, we get into our final debate, Ninganyagazi. Welcome back to One Day Leader. We're still asking our leaders what else can be done to fast-track the delivery of basic services for South Africans. Please continue to share your comments on all our social media platforms. Will this final debate decide who will be in our finale, South Africa? Well, let's hear it from Sakile and Label. Perhaps you guys have the solutions, viable ones that is. You know the rules by now.
South Africa, I stand before you inherently proud to advocate for transparency, accountability and efficiency, where 14,612 water and electricity posts aren't filled in our municipality, where 34% of the RDP budget goes to the reconstruction of already constructed RDP houses, and only 1 out of 9 of our provinces have received a clean audit. It is clearly a human capital issue where the incorrect people are filling posts that directly affect people's lives and the tangible change they need. We need to stop cadre deployment.
Time is up, Sakila. Thank you very much. Your 60 seconds starts now.
Sakila, I hear all you're just saying, but now how do we make them account for all of this?
So you make them account by voting them out, right? So the correct people are in those positions. But in the instance
People
where
keep
you
voting
let me
for the
answer
same
your question.
parties.
In the instance where you can't vote them out, you make sure that they are accountable. You go to your ward
But Sakila,
councillor,
how will
go to
this
the
speak to people who are within the depths of that poverty, within the depths of not
we
having,
have enough
they have got no
resources.
communication
Yeah.
channels.
Let me
to
answer that.
Who
Let me
can
answer
they
that,
speak
right?
to?
So we have enough resources to make sure that the basic needs of South Africans are met, right? The GGA did a study to announce this. But what is problematic here is how we use it. If China can emancipate 400 million people in the past 20 years with a national revenue
Sakile,
budget that is
apart from
4
you
times
talking
less than
about
ours,
votes,
it is
you
not
aren't
about money.
addressing
It's
any
about
of
the
my
people
questions
in
yet,
charge
Sakile.
of making that change. What?
You're having a monologue here. What I'm asking you is answer my question. How will we make people who are in the depths of the poverty, how will they have communications with people who are counting at the top, who are able to actually help them? How do we get
That's
them
what I
to...
just told
the
you.
communication link is not
Time is
there,
up, all right?
Sakile.
All right,
30
cool.
seconds.
So like I said, if China can economically emancipate 400 million of its citizens in the past 20 years with a national revenue budget expenditure per capita of the government that is 4 times less than ours, it means that it's not about the resources, but rather the efficiency of the human capital we have performing the most critical parts of our economy and our society, right? It's about excellence in local government that maximizes efficiency of the resources we have at the basic level so that people benefit from them effectively. Even if we say we are woke or we
All
want
right,
to
time
change
is
our
up.
mindset,
The tables are turned.
change
Lebo,
is
it's your
needed.
turn.
In any given country, a lack of transparency breeds corruption and undermines the trust between the citizens and the state. There are 2 main problems here: corruption and a lack of communication and integration between the government, the private sector, and the community. How do we combat this? By implementing a monitoring and auditing agency that is independent from the government. They will then assess the gaps where deliverables are not being delivered. Number 2, the government then works with the private sector in order to find out what the needs really are of the people. And let's try to
All right, time is
develop
up,
their skills
Lebo.
within.
Leaders, you have 60 seconds.
So like she said, nothing that's different from the status quo because the Public Protector's Office is
Sakile,
independent.
what's your question?
I'm trying to get to it, right? Hold on, right? Because the Public Protector's Office is independent from governance and government, right? And still there's corruption that she speaks to. There's that poverty and people aren't receiving services.
What is your question? Are you sort of just reading out what is your question, Sakile?
I'm telling you that you are inaccurate
No,
in
you're
your
telling-
assumption
Oh,
that
my
the
soul.
Public Protector doesn't exist. And
Oh,
if we have people in places, relax.
No,
If
you
we have
relax.
people in places of power that can create that tangible change, that doesn't happen. What I'm telling you is that we need to elect
You're
officials
giving me a speech,
that
you're
can
not
be
asking me a question.
accountable.
This is time for us to engage, not for you to have a moment of a speech here.
So then,
We need to
speak to the
engage
Public
right now,
Protector.
Sakile.
Speak to the Public Protector and her existence.
Sakile, what I'm saying to you right now is the main thing we need here is a monitoring and auditing system
The Public
that'll make
Protector
sure
is
that
there,
any
ladies and
single gap
gentlemen.
within...
Public
You know,
Protector.
what I'm
Lebo,
talking
you're
to
not
you about
making
a
any sense
separate
right now.
agency that is separate from the government. If you had listened
The
to my
Public
Right,
vision,
Protector's
thank you very
Office
much.
is
Thank you very
separate.
30 seconds, Lebo.
with our levels of structural underdevelopment and poverty, we simply can't afford to have a superficial understanding of our problems. We need to listen to the recipients of these services and understand where the gaps are and the failures are in policy design and execution. Let's monitor service delivery effectively. Let's capacitate the community, give them skills, give them tools. What's the point of giving needs without a point of sustainability in that? Give a man a fish and feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and feed him for a lifetime.
Thank you very much. All right, certainly a heated one. What an ending. Judges, I'll come to you, Gershwin, specifically. You've heard some of the solutions that our leaders spoke about. What is your take on that?
So I just want to put it on the table that both contestants put really strong arguments on the table. So for Sakile, obviously, around the issue of human capital in elections, but then she countered, Lebo countered with an excellent point that people have been voting for the same people over and over again. And therefore, she put forward a very strong proposition in that we need this perpetual monitoring system, which I thought was very strong. And you didn't quite address it in your question. So therefore, you're the winner, Lebo.
All right. Tebogo, let me just bring you in. I mean, this is the week before we're going into the finale. What did you think of our leaders' debates today?
Well, I thought the debates were quite interesting, very different. I was hoping in the second debate we would play by the rules. Not only discrediting, but also giving your contestant and your opposition a chance to answer so that you can listen and then you'll evaluate whether or not what they're saying is reasonable. But overall, I'm very impressed with how you have conducted yourself. And I will say that complacency is the enemy of progress. And so there's always somebody waiting to take full advantage of what you're taking for granted. And I think you guys are taking full advantage.
All right, thank you. Kathy, I think we should also hear from you, since that debate was so heated. Your thoughts on the overall
Wow.
debates and how well our leaders have been doing?
I think that today is a culmination of 11 weeks of really hard work, listening to each other, learning from each other, and learning from the experience every Monday on the show. And I think it's important to understand that you've all walked a very, very difficult journey to get to where you are now. And the one thing I know is that any one of you could be there representing this show next week. This is a very, very difficult decision to make, and you can all be very proud to be the last four standing.
Thank you very much. All right, Lebo, I could see the sigh of relief. Well done for walking away with that debate. Now, as I speak, the voting lines have officially been closed, which means that if you haven't voted enough for your favorite, your leader might just be going home. Our studio audience will cast their votes as we go into the ad break. So, Ninganyagazi. Welcome back to One Day Leader. Today we will get to find out who our final two are, as well as the bottom two who will be going home. Now I'm about to reveal what the studio audience had to say and who you at home have been voting for. Now both these votes combined with the judges' scores will determine who goes home today. But before I do that, let me hear what the parting words from all three of our judges are. Deboho, I'll start with you. Parting words for today and a young throw forward going into next week's final.
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of the progress that you've made so far. I think it takes a lot of humility for you to continuously learn, and I hope you don't lose that humility. You know, you're only as good as your last debate, and so you need to bring your A game each and every week, and that is what you've done. And so I think with any one of you in charge of any municipality, any government department, or any company, I think those institutions are going to do very well, and our future is definitely in safe hands.
All right. Catherine, you've witnessed their growth. Going into next week, the pressure really is on. Parting words and your throw forward.
I'd have to say, trust in the journey. You have come so far. Whatever happens and whatever Pearl says in a few moments will determine who goes through next week, but it does not determine what legacy you will continue to build and leave behind. You must continue to go back to your communities and do amazing work. We believe that we will continue to see your names pop up throughout the next few years, and you have that as a responsibility. Coming off of a show like this, having had this platform, you have a great responsibility both to communities that you come from, but to South Africa at large. And I have no doubt that you will continue to be amazing and inspiring leaders for our country.
All right. And Gershwell Brooks, let me come to you. Your parting words, and what words of encouragement do you have for the greater South Africans who still are yet to receive the basic services?
Well, I think first and foremost, one has to recognize the 4 young people in front of us. So whoever stays behind and whoever goes away, especially those ones that go away, as long as you keep that fire burning, because I'm very impressed with what I saw here today. But I think for South Africans in general, and especially for you 4 up front, it was amazing to see how you drew from the Constitution and you understand what the Constitution is there for, and that quite frankly, people should not be having children walking to school every single day in the dead cold of winter without socks on. The Constitution doesn't allow for that to happen. In fact, it caters for the direct opposite, where people should be accessing services. And I think that you've hit the nail on the head in terms of what is needed. It is better people in those positions. It is people that are actually accountable and that we need to monitor them. And that's the role that the South African Human Rights Commission tries to play, for example. And some of the other issues that you've highlighted of what's needed, that we need to have that big vision, that 2020 vision, if that be the case. So yeah, please keep it up, and hopefully we keep the course, as they would say.
All right, round of applause for our judges. All right, so the audience voted, and their favorite for this episode is Lebo. Congratulations. Well, thanks so much to our audience and, of course, our judges for their votes. Now, let's take a final look at our scoreboard to see how you at home have voted. Well, Retabile is sitting at the top with 1,672 viewer votes, and at the bottom is Sydney with 292 viewer votes. All right, now we take a look at the series scoreboard. Lebo is leading with 15 points, and at the bottom is Sakile and Ritabile, who are tied at 13 points respectively. All right, as our votes stand, leader 2 and 3, you're out. Sakile, let's take a look at your journey.
Been traveling for a while. I'm actually quite exhausted. I'm very, very excited to go home and see my family.
Hello. Yeah, Mr. Celebrity.
Yes. Senfikile.
Yeah, I have to. I have to. It adds 10 kilos. It adds 10 kilos.
He was always a feisty child.
The economic disparities in this country are why people feel inferior or superior to the other person. Until we address that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going nowhere. South Africa, we need change.
My journey on One Day Leader has been one of self-discovery and growth. I can remember from just walking down in the house on that first episode.
Sakile is quite a secretive person. He does a lot of things without telling people what he's up to. And one day you realize he is in the top 6.
First, I just couldn't believe that my son is on TV. And I got phone calls from neighbors. We've seen Sakile on TV.
Seeing you actually growing to becoming the leader that you not only proclaim to be, but you've lived it by example your entire life. I couldn't be more proud. This is probably admiration that I've had my entire life with you, even in the times when I wanted to kill you.
You've done so well. I think you've done us very proud. And we just wish you all the best on this journey.
Of course, you don't go in wanting to come second, but it's not about winning all the time. It's about doing your best.
You walk into this experience wanting to obviously win, but you never take into consideration the people that you meet along the way on the onset and like how those people affect your lives. But that experience is definitely something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
From the streets of Umlazi to the stages of the SABC, I believe in an open opportunity society where it is not where you come from that determines how far you make it in life. South Africa, we need change, so be the change.
Sakile Mgadi, an incredible journey you've had. Your parting words.
I just want to thank everyone, the judges, my fellow contestants. You know, I never thought, obviously, that this would be the circumstance, but since it is, that you can just like reflect and only smile because of like the change you as a person have made and just like the lives you've touched along the way. It's been an incredible journey. I'm so thankful.
All right, thank you very much. All right, now Ritabile, you've also been eliminated, but before we let you go off the podium, let's also take a look at your journey with us on season 5.
After 18 years of fighting with my mom and dad and just hating to come home, I feel today marks a very special day for me. Like, listen, yes, you can be independent outside home, but you always have to go back home because that's where a lot of love lies.
Ritabile Landman, the name, will always reverberate through the school's corridors. I think since she came to school in grade 8, she's always been a go-getter.
Every year, Ritabile na win a trophy ko school. Ntate moholoane wa lekgowa a la a ya ho yena ka January mahatsa a hlokaitse a week after Tabila Zama. That is why I la fitla on that demolol. The Hazewerk Zabonans Africans never did too so more.
Re thabile ha qeta ho pasa matric ne re thabile because una itse o batla ho etsa BCom law kha asa ho so fihla email e reng one day leader o tshwantsa tsamaye o fihleletse top 20 ha ola ha ba le dikwaketsano ga se ke ga utlwana ka maikutlo but seng hore ke motho a ratang hore ntho ha batla ho etsa o tla etsa ene o tla e fihlela ga fumana re hloleile she had to pack and go.
I feel like school is not just the classroom, the four walls of the classroom. I feel like One Day itself is a school that breeds amazing people. 150 years ago was the Industrial Revolution, but today we live in a political revolution where young people are at the forefront. Why? Because to be young is something, but to be young and woke is everything. Hashtag we are woke.
Such emotional scenes watching your journey here in One Day Leader. What are your parting words, Leader 3?
I'm definitely grateful. I am so grateful for the platform. I'm grateful for being a leader outside school, outside the classroom. And I think I'm very grateful for the lives I've touched as a young leader. And being 18 and woke, the woke generation continues. And hashtag definitely we are woke. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, leaders. All right, now to you at home, join us next Monday as we crown our ultimate One Day Leader Season 5 winner. Now for you who are left, next week is the finale. We'll get to wipe the scoreboards clean. You start on a clean slate. 300,000 Rand is at stake. Think about that. Think about your arguments and make sure that you slay next week. Bring your A game. All right. Now I'll leave you with these wise words. People lack the freedom to see the forest beyond the trees, the freedom to choose what is right over what seems pressing. From myself, Upel Shongwe, Umdimanze, Ubambolunye, Magezeng Elvise Mandiahleti, and the rest of the One Day Leader team. Ishonile Nina Magalazidze.